Alright, hello YouTube. Wanted to do a quick update video on the GX and just show some of the mods and features. I saw a video this morning by the humble off-roader of his GX. It looked really great. I wanted to just show some of the modifications on a 2017 luxury example. One of the big things with the luxury is you do get the radar cruise control, as well as the front camera here, which adds another camera on the side view mirror here, so you can see this side of the car. The radar cruise is adequate at highway speeds, but it does not do full stop-go driving like the RAV4 Limited does in 2021, which can pretty much drive and steer through the road, which is fantastic. The GX will just keep pace with things in front of you, which is at times pretty good. And here's the other camera that you get, which sits underneath the passenger mirror, provides a viewing angle of the car. It's actually pretty good for when you're off-roading because you can see the front as well as the side of the car that you're opposite on. So if you're looking to spot a rock or spot a rut in the road, very helpful. In addition to the side mirror on the passenger side, you also get these lighted Lexus greeting and the door sill, which some people can add on extra. Another thing that comes with the luxury version are these extra switches, and everyone loves extra switches, right? Well, the big two are the crawl control here, which allows you to do crawl control when you are in low 4. The other one is it's easy to add the multi-terrain select, and so that goes in behind the glove box, which is a project you can find online. And once it's installed, it gives you multi-terrain select as well as crawl control. Ironically, the buttons up here, in my example, no longer function, but in the luxury options you get a adaptive ride height, which is pretty cool. So it can lower the rear suspension about, I think it's 0.8 of an inch or something around that, about an inch. And that's good if you're trying to load things in and out. I remember picking up my mom from the airport, lowered this so she could load her luggage easier into the car. And then you also have the same thing where it can ride up, and it'll elevate about another inch or so, or close to an inch, to give you a little more clearance when you're off-roading. But it turns off at 20 miles an hour when you're riding high, and then it turns off, I think, at something low, like 6 or 7 miles per hour when you're riding in the lowest setting. Also, there was the adaptive suspension, which I still have, but it doesn't work through this method anymore, and I'll go through that in a minute. But in the stock luxury, you would be able to decide comfort or sport mode, depending on where you want it to be. So with the radar guidance in the front, you can see this is part of that radar system here that actually focuses on the driver, and the pre-crash system will automatically engage the brake, tighten the seat belts if it detects a accident. Also, if it detects that you're not paying attention to the road and that there's a change in the speed in the vehicle in front of you, it'll shine an alert on the screen to get your attention. You also have the camera button, so by pressing this, it allows access to the camera, which is the front of my garage, as well as the side view mirror right there. And so, as I said earlier, when you're off-roading, this can be pretty helpful at navigating some obstacles. Honestly, the front camera is a little bit more interesting, but it seems to work pretty well. Another feature is the cross-traffic alert, so you have that in the corner of the camera, as well as the rear pedestrian and car detection, which is nice. So if you're backing out of a parking space, it'll beep at you if there's something back there. And the rear view camera, because I'm parked in my tight garage, you can see it's very happy with all the sensors, is a great rear view camera. It's plenty big, and I kind of prefer it to my wife's RAV4 because it does this kind of view here where you have the rear view camera and like a 360 view, which is great. But sometimes you want the rear view to be just as big as possible. Also installed here is the Grom V-Line system, which works great. Provides some radio. Allows you to do the Google Maps situation I've got this thing set up using a Wi-Fi hotspot, which is in there. So the Wi-Fi hotspot gives me internet connection full time with this. So when I typically don't use the CarPlay, but when I do use it, it works great. And then you can see here I've built a 3D printed shelf for the glove box. It seems to be holding together okay. Added some spare 3D print material that I had. And one other exciting feature you get here is the heated steering wheel. So right now it's going to be 109 degrees today, so probably not necessary. But you do have that. You also have the headlight washers, traction control off. I think this is the biggest gripe of the GX is the lack of controls physically for your air conditioning and heating. You have to manually go to the screen and press this button. Apparently the 2022 remodel will include a or at least a manually adjustable version of that, so that should be very appreciated by those that have been using the GX for a while. Back seat's a little dirty, or the trunk is, from a recent road trip, but you can see there's the captain's chair's configuration back there. That's worked out well. Definitely, even with our dogs, we can put our dog beds back there, works out, and you have the air conditioning or heat for the dogs. One of the other interior mods is the Midland 15-watt Gmrs radio system. So I got the Gmrs license from the FCC, and it's been helpful. When I was up in Shasta and Chappie OHV, I was able to communicate back to our camper using this and walkie-talkie back at the campsite. So worked for probably 10, 12 miles, though I was on a hill, so clear visibility. But you can also connect with repeaters with this. It does have a weather function, which is just telling you that it is hot outside. But I like it. It's easy to store, and all your functions are here, so you can hide the actual control unit. And as for the mounting of the GMRS antenna, I have I think it's a 3 decibel, or maybe it's a 6 decibel antenna booster here, and I mounted it to the Forerunner roof racks that I got off of Craigslist for a reasonable price. That was one of the very first modifications. And then on top of that is the Yakima tube mount system, where currently I have the recovery tracks due to a recent off-road event, as well as the high lift jack on the other side there. And I like this system. I'm able to put on the ski rack system in the winter, so I can put skis and snowboards up there, or take it all off, and when I don't need to have any of this stuff on there, have a cleaner roof line. So another interesting addition is actually this thing right here, which you can't see that well, but this is a quarter-inch MPT valve for my air compressor system, which is in the back of the car. And then inside the engine compartment, I have the pressure readout for that air system, as well as a way to relieve the pressure from the system when I'm draining the tires. And this system connects to all 4 tires. And so in the front tire, I have the air system run with the same cap, and that cap is held in by a 3D printed sort of TPU material that's somewhat flexible to cover up the rubber that was starting to warp due to this mod. And so then you pull that out, you can connect this to your tire, and then you can adjust all 4 tires at once, as well as equaling the pressure out between them all. So while we're down here, suspension. So this is the Dobinson Mrr system with the adjustable reservoir here. Currently I have them set for the medium settings, but you can adjust them to be stiffer or looser depending on terrain. This gives the vehicle about 1.5 to 2 inch lift. So moderate, sorry, that's 2 to 2.5 inch lift. So moderate lift. It's worked really well. I've enjoyed the articulation. And anytime you lift your vehicle and put bigger tires on, you always end up rubbing into stuff on your plastic in the front and the back. So every now and then you get a sound, but overall it's been pretty good. And then yeah, there's the air system that runs in there. And so the Mrr reservoir is here. And this is pretty nice. It allows you to adjust, like I said, the stiffness of the shock by twisting this purple cap It's probably out of the camera field, but you can twist this cap right here, and it gives you a couple of nice clicks to let you know that you've rotated it. As far as other modifications with the lift, I also did the Cbi Sliders afterwards, where I cut the bumper, or cut the side steps here, put these on, was able to retain the underlights, so when I do approach the vehicle and open it, I still get the lights underneath there, which it's pretty nice. I saw that in the online installation guide, they just sort of tossed them and found a way to keep them. And then here in the rear, again, you can see this vinyl styling that I've added to the vehicle to complement the trailer. Certainly unique. Obviously, I like it. It's definitely got some interesting vibes. And when we talked about the air system down here, below the rear tire, I have the stem valve for the rear. And so this pulls out, plug that in, same system. And that allows you to hook up the tire to the stem and inflate. And so now we're underneath the car in the rear passenger tire well, and you can see, again, the Dobinson's spring here. Inside there is the Airlift Airbags. That system can hold an additional 1,000 pounds, depending on what PSI you've had them on. It's been a little interesting. I like them. They work great when they work, but I've had to run the air tubing a couple times to get it right away from exhaust or any pinch areas within the vehicle. But otherwise, it allows for adjusting of the suspension, which came in handy. I had a time where I was parking the trailer and I went up a steep hill and didn't have my weight distribution hitch on, and so I was able to inflate these to clear the trailer. Again, here's the driver's side view of the suspension with the airlift system in there. And right now they're set for about 9.5, 10 psi. Allows for a comfortable ride. The yellow tubing you're seeing is part of the air tube system, and that runs over and down into the air output for the rear tire, and that runs all through the car. And I've had to run it and hide it in locations with zip ties to keep it away from heat and other sources of pinching. It took me only one time to get that completely right. First time I definitely melted it, but you live and you learn. Down at the bottom, you see from this angle the rear gas tank armor, which is from RCI. It's the aluminum variety. It's got a few scratches, but nothing too serious yet. And then I'll go around the front and show off the Cbi Under Armour that's there. So back up in the front, we have the Cbi front bumper with the front, bash plate or rock guards, however you see it. I just put a Badlands winch in there. It's fairly inexpensive and works so far. With the winch install, one thing you do want to have is access to the winch release, and so that's what this hole cutout is here. And so you can get down here and reach that and spin it to pull your lead out. And then I also made this cut here so I can access the actual box that's mounted here. So box mounted there for the solenoid and controls, and then the wires lead up into the battery here. And then as you go down underneath the car, you can see I also have the Kdss front sway arm skid plates, and those are an aluminum. They've been okay. I haven't had anything hit them yet, thankfully, but I've also not been rock crawling. And then you can see the Cbi front armor, and it goes all the way back till it meets up with the RCI gas skid plate there. One thing that is nice, they do have these panels that drop out, and when I took this thing actually in for its 50,000 mile tune-up, they were able to access it no problem and change the oil and get things going. So it seems to be understood and serviceable by the shops. And also you have an area to connect your winch wiring here should you need to replace your winch, though I think you'd have to take the entire bumper off to actually replace the winch. And one of these things I've been thinking about is behind here is a little plate that you could add color to. I don't know if I'll ever get around to doing something like that, but since the rest of the car is so colorful, one could imagine why you'd be interested in doing something like that. So that's about it for the review. I've gone over some of the features and upgrades of the 2017 Luxury with some of the updates I did. I think the only thing I didn't mention is the GPS mount for the Grom V-line there to get better access, and these WeatherTech, rain deflectors and wind deflectors. Otherwise, got a view of my dirty garage, as well as somewhat clean and modified GX460 that has been such a great vehicle to have for towing and for comfortable trips. If you're taking a couple people, you have those beautiful captain's chairs, and it's been a great vehicle. I really have enjoyed it. As long as the reliability holds up to what its other siblings have been doing for the last decade, it should continue to be a good SUV for towing and for family purposes. Just to show the trailer that sort of inspired the colors on the GX. So they have a nice matching pair as they tow down the road.